Welcome to this short video for all KWS contract managers and engineer supervisors, which cover important changes to the FSI Go app and the timesheet functionality. These changes will allow your team to capture their working times while they're carrying out their tasks and create paperless timesheets. We're going to step you through the changes with slides and demonstrations, and by the end of the video you'll be able to understand how the engineering team will capture their times on the tablets, including overtime and downtime, and also understand the process that will be involved in reviewing and amending the timesheet reports at the end of the week. We'll summarise with the key messages for engineers. So these new changes mean that when the engineers press the buttons on the task, a timesheet is created, which captures the job time, the travel time, and also overtime. We've adapted the system so that the total time spent on the task is captured, starting from the time that they arrive on site, incorporating all the time on the task right up to the point when they leave. So the time it takes to sign in, complete the asbestos record, complete the risk assessment, right through to when the paperwork is filled out is now recorded. This should make life a lot easier as we can get away from paper timesheets and the engineers will not have to struggle to remember the times that they take on each task, and it makes time recording a lot easier. So the new timesheet functionality will be available on the tablets from the 16th of October. There'll be a trial period during which the paper timesheets will still be used. This will allow the process of reviewing the electronic timesheets to be consolidated. It's anticipated that within 4 to 6 weeks after the new system goes live, we'll be able to switch over to mainly using paperless timesheets generated by the system. This new change will help us address a number of problems which are causing significant issues in administration and finance. Specifically, we're finding that engineers are not using their tablets in real time. In fact, over 55% of the tasks are done without the buttons being pressed while the task is being carried out. And then correct timings are not always provided in the completion notes. In addition, paper timesheets are inefficient and don't tie up with the date and times of the task completion notes either. This leads to a lot of time and effort to get the right dates and times which we need to price the task for the client. And this leads to a loss of revenue, limits our growth and the ability to plan effectively. Okay, to illustrate this problem, we need to understand what's used to price the task for the client and what is used to work out the cost to the business. Job pricing is worked out for the times generated from the tablet when the buttons are pressed. So if the buttons on the tasks are all pressed at the end of the shift, we can't price the jobs correctly. In this example, it looks like only 50p's worth of work has been done today. The job costings come through the timesheet that the engineering team fill out, and this reflects what work has been done. Time and effort is required to tie up the cost to create accurate pricing, and this represents a major loss to the business. As a further example, one of our contract team averages about 900 hours per engineer in terms of jobs priced, but the timesheets show over 1,400 hours of work done and 200 hours of additional overtime. To make this system really work and get the pricing and the costings correct, we need all the engineers to use their tablets in real time while they're completing their tasks. This will lead to the correct times on the tasks and make it easier to charge the clients accurately. If an engineer cannot update a task in real time, they've got to put the real timings in the comment box, either when completing a task or returning it. The timesheet screen at the end of the task will allow the engineer to amend the times to show work times accurately, and this will include overtime work and travel. Line managers will be able to review the real times entered on the tablet and those provided by the engineer on the task. This will determine overtime payments, so it's really important to encourage the engineer to get this right. So from the 16th of October, a timesheet form will appear when you're completing or returning a task, or rejecting a task because it's not safe, or pausing a task. Before we take a look at the screen, let's look at how time is recorded on the tablet. In this example, the engineer starts travelling to his first job of the day at 7:15. He'll complete his van checks, then get on the road. When he arrives on site, he presses the on-site button, and this captures the travel time for the task, in this case 45 minutes. From this point, the clock is ticking on the task. The engineer will sign in, complete the asbestos record, complete the risk assessment and begin work. All of this time is captured against the task. When the task is completed or returned, the engineer will be asked if they're ready to leave site. If they're staying on site, the system will take them directly to the timesheet, and here it's captured a time for 1 hour. If they're leaving the site, the task will stay open and the time keeps ticking while the engineer packs up, signs out and completes the paperwork. Once the engineer is ready to leave the site, they press Leave Client Site and the timesheet screen will appear. This will capture a time of 1 hour and 20 minutes. Here is an example of how they record overtime. In this case, the engineer is working on a task at the end of the day. His core hours finish at 4:30. By pressing the buttons in real time, the correct travel time is captured as 45 minutes. Once the on-site button is pressed, the clock starts ticking on the task while the engineer signs in, completes the risk assessment, and starts work. The engineer works for 3.5 hours on the task and returns it to the help desk as more work is required. When the timesheet form appears, the engineer is able to adjust the time on the task to reflect his overtime. He's worked 1.5 hours of core time and 2 hours of overtime. So it can't be emphasised enough that we want engineers to complete their jobs in real time. However, we know that there are times when this isn't possible, for example when filling out a task that has been completed in the past, say an out-of-hours job. If this occurs, then the dates and times need to be added to the completion comments box or the return to the help desk comments box. We need the travel time started, the time on site, and the time completed. If your contract has a contain SLA, then that needs to be included as well. So let's take a closer look at the timesheet form. At the top of the screen, it shows you the times and dates that have been captured by the tablet button presses. Under the grey boxes, you can see the total time worked and the total travel time. You're not able to adjust those dates and times here. If the dates and times are incorrect, then the engineer can put the corrected dates and times in the timesheet comment box at the bottom, so that the help desk can update the task on concept when it returns to them. If the time needs to be adjusted for overtime, then this can be done using the white boxes. They manually take away the time from the core hours and add them to the overtime box. A warning will pop up to say if the timing has been adjusted by more than 30 minutes. If the engineer is happy to accept those timings, he can proceed. However, we advise them to put an explanation in the timesheet comment box. So engineers can use the timesheet forms to confirm their normal travel and working times and adjust the times to include overtime. If the timesheet for the day exceeds 16 hours, it'll need to be raised with the contract manager or line manager. You will need to assess the whole working day and, if approved, ask the help desk to update it on concept. For client meetings, a meet and greet task can be raised by the help desk and assigned to the engineer. This means that time is captured as part of the engineer's daily activity. These should only be used if the engineer is working on an activity that is not task related, such as bulk subcontractor certification or client visits. Some contracts require contract manager approval before creating a meet and greet task for client meetings. For internal meetings like training or team meetings, downtime is added to the engineer's calendar. The help desk is able to add this for your engineers. All of these timesheet forms will create a timesheet report for the end of the week. On a Monday morning, the timesheet report will be available for both the engineer and their line managers to review. The timesheet report will show the hours recorded for working times and travel times using the button presses, and also the hours recorded using the timesheet forms. It will show the overtime hours, travel times, and downtimes. It's worth remembering that timesheet drives the payroll and costings, but not pricing. The pricing is based on the task actual times, which is when the buttons are pressed by the engineers. Let's look at the process of reviewing the timesheet report. The engineers will review the report on Monday and email Helpdesk admin by 3 p.m. with any changes they want to make. Helpdesk can't make any timesheet corrections for engineers after Monday. On Tuesday, you'll be able to check the details on the timesheet report. discuss any anomalies with the engineer and make any amendments. For example, if the reported core time is less than their contracted hours, you'll be able to move time from their overtime to make up the shortfall. Agree any changes with the engineer and contact the help desk with changes by the end of Wednesday. Any corrections after Wednesday can only be made by finance, and they have up until Friday. So the contract manager will need to contact finance to ask for any corrections after Wednesday. If everything's okay with the timesheet, email approval to finance, contacting Andrew Thomas's team. So the key points again, we'll be starting a trial period from the 16th of October. This will mean continuing to use the paper or manual timesheets as well as using the new paperless timesheets. Once the team and the admin team have got the process working smoothly, we'll be able to phase out the manual timesheet process. We think that'll take about 4 to 6 weeks. We need to encourage the engineers to use their tablets in real time for as many jobs as they can. We're looking for about 98% of tasks to be worked on like this. If they have to fill out the task after they've done the job, get them to put the correct times in the completion comments or the return comments. By Monday, engineers can start checking their timesheets and make amendments via emailing the help desk. On Tuesday, you can review the timesheet for the whole team and make amendments up until Wednesday at 3 p.m. Now we want to show you a quick demonstration on how to generate the timesheet report in Concept. If you want to see more detail about how the engineers use the timesheet forms on their tablets, take a look at the engineer video, which is available alongside this one.
Welcome to the demonstration of the Contract Manager timesheet report. The first step is to log in to Concept Evolution. Once logged in, you'll need to navigate to the Crystal Reports menu, which is where the Contract Manager timesheet report sits. A new window is launched where you can define the report parameters, that is, the timesheet week, the contracts, and the engineers. First select the week ending date. You'll need to enter the previous weekend Sunday date at 23:59 to capture the whole week's timesheet data. Click anywhere to minimize the calendar icon so you can enter the rest of the report parameters. You'll need to export all contracts to see time data for engineers even when they're not working on your contract. You'll also want to specify all engineers so you don't miss any time that might be logged on your contract for resources that you weren't expecting. The next step is to run the report. The report has run. Now export the data to Excel so you can start to analyze the output more closely. Confirm that you want to open the report in Excel. You will need to edit the report to start your analysis. Now you need to set up filters to find the data of interest. First filter by your contracts. In this example, you'll filter by the Camden contract. This will provide a 360-degree view of your contract and what time has been spent on it, regardless of whether you own the resource. The top row will need expanding to show the header columns. Freeze the top row to see the header columns even when you scroll down. This will make it easier to navigate the report. Review the time spent on the contract. The report is sorted by employee name, so you can review the time spent, resource by resource. Check the engineer's overtime on a contract. If you don't agree with the overtime amount, you'll need to confirm it with the engineer. If changes are required, depending on the day of the week, you need to either email help desk or finance. Remove all tasks with zero overtime on a contract. These are the tasks that have incurred some overtime on a contract. The task brief description describes the tasks. Now clear the filter. Now check the engineer's total time on a contract. This is the overtime and core time added together. Have a look at the types of tasks the engineers have worked on. Now review the timesheets of your individual engineers. Clear the contract name filter. Filter by the specific resource in the employee name column. In this scenario, you'll filter by Bernard Core. You now have a 360-degree view of where this engineer has spent time for the specified week. This includes all contracts they've worked on and any downtime, for example holiday or sickness, etc. The times are sorted from earliest to latest. From a health and safety perspective, they shouldn't work more than 16 hours in any given day. Note that if you specified a contract on a search parameter screen, you wouldn't get this view. Now let's drill down on downtime for the engineer. Remove all blanks. Scroll to the right to see the downtime descriptions. These are the downtime categories logged by the engineer. Now clear the downtime filter. The next step is to review the FSI Go button press times with the times the engineer entered in the FSI Go timesheet. This information is found at the right of the report. Columns S through to AB contain this detail. The blue columns are the timesheet times and they relate to costing and payroll, and the pink columns are the button press times and they relate to pricing. These need to be in alignment as it feeds into Oracle. Contract cash performance will be majorly impacted if there's misalignment. Let's first compare the travel times. The timesheet travel times are columns S and T, and the button press travel times are found in column Z. You're going to hide all other columns and check if there's any major discrepancy. Now hide columns AA and AB. A good example of a discrepancy is shown here. Compare the buttons press travel times with what the engineer entered in their FSI Go timesheet. You can see that there's a big difference in the line highlighted, row 15. The engineer entered 30 minutes normal travel time with 0 overtime travel time in their timesheet, which together is a total of 30 minutes, but the button press travel time shows 0 for this task. Now unhide all hidden columns to start the next bit of analysis. Now compare the working on a job times. The timesheet job times are columns U and V, and the button press job times are found in column AA. Hide all other columns so we can analyze this and check if there's any major discrepancy. So we're comparing the timesheet job times, which are the blue columns U and V, with the button press job times that are found in the pink column AA. If there's a significant discrepancy, you would need to check the engineer's comments. Note the highlighted line, row 15 again. The timesheet normal job time is 153 minutes, which is just over 2.5 hours, and the timesheet job overtime is 0. So the total timesheet job time, which is a sum of the blue columns, is 153 minutes. However, the button press core job time in the pink column is 0 minutes. We need to investigate this further by looking at the engineer's comments. First, unhide all the hidden columns. Here we can see all the tasks' current levels of completion, and the engineer's completion comments. The completion comments for the line we're investigating show that the engineer hadn't pressed the buttons real time but had advised help desk to update the time record. Note that the level of completion for this task is not yet operationally complete, it is only at completed status. Help desk will only update the time record details when they're reviewing the task before they operationally complete, which explains why the button press times have not yet been updated. Congratulations, you've successfully completed the Contract Manager timesheet report demonstration.
The purpose of this video was to show you how the engineers capture both their working hours, overtime and downtime on the new timesheet functionality. In addition, we've looked at the process of assessing the timesheet report and the timescales for reviewing and making changes. We hope you've enjoyed it. Good luck and thanks for your participation.